The next practice piece will teach how to program more than one pattern into the same piece of knitting. The E6000 is capable of having as many patterns programmed as there are letters in the alphabet, 26. Bring the computer along using the fast-forward key until program is on the display. Return to the earlier section on computer programming for help in doing this if needed. Press Enter, yes. Press Enter, yes. Which cast-on is to be used? In the instruction manual, there are different types of cast-ons beginning on page 134. The cast-on selected is determined by the type of knitting to be done and also the type of garment being produced. For this next practice garment, use cast-on number 6. Press 6, then press Enter. Is that all the stitch patterns desired? Press No. Which is going to be stitch pattern A or the first pattern? In the stitch pattern book are nearly 700 patterns which the computer has in its memory. The 4-digit number at the bottom of each picture is the number assigned to that stitch pattern. The 3-digit number next to the stitch pattern number is the knitting technique. The knitting technique determines the type of knitting that the pattern will be put on. For this garment, stitch pattern A is number 1119 on page 46 of the pattern book. Press 1119. Press Enter. Is the pattern to be altered? Press No. Which knitting technique is to be used with this pattern? The knitting techniques are shown in the instruction manual. For this practice piece, use number 176, found on page 155 of the instruction manual. Press 176. Press Enter. Is the pattern to be enlarged or positioned? Press No. Is there to be a test piece of this program? Press No. Is this all the stitch patterns to be used? Press No. What is the stitch pattern for B, or the second pattern? Use pattern number 1127 on page 61 of the pattern book. Press 1127. Press Enter. Is the pattern to be altered? Press No. Which knitting technique is to be used with this pattern? Use number 176. Press 176. Press Enter. Is the pattern to be enlarged or positioned? Press No. Is this all the stitch patterns to be used? Press No. Which stitch pattern is used for C, or the third pattern? Use pattern number 1005 on page 21 of the pattern book. Press 1005. Press Enter. Is the pattern to be altered? Press No. Which knitting technique is to be used with this pattern? Use 132. Press 132. Press Enter. Is this all the stitch patterns to be used? Press No. Which stitch pattern is used for D, or the fourth pattern? Use pattern number 133 on page 17 of the pattern book. Press 133. Press Enter. Is this all the stitch patterns to be used? Press Enter. Yes. The computer asks if the garment is going to be formed or shaped. Press No. How many of the left needles are going to be in working position? Bring up 25 pushers left of center on the front bed. Press 25 minus. Press Enter. How many of the right needles are going to be in working position? Bring up 25 pushers right of center on the front bed. Remember to put the edge springs on the last needles in working position on the front bed. Make sure the latches are closed underneath so that the needles move freely. As only the front needles will be used for this practice piece, take the orange ruler and bring all back bed needles out of working position by pushing them down completely. Press 25. Press Enter. The computer says it is time to start the cast on. Press Enter. Move the lock to the start position. Press Enter. Press Enter. Set the front lock to SX. Press Enter. Set the back lock to GX. Press Enter. Move the lock across with the feeding eyelet and strippers removed. Check to make sure the racking handle is down. Press Enter. Are the 50 needles and pushers on the front bed in working position? Press Enter. Move the lock across empty. Bring color 1 into the lock. Press Enter. Set the stitch size. On the front lock, set the stitch size to 4 1/2. Press Enter. Insert the black strippers. The black strippers are used for single bed knitting. Press Enter. Set the front lock to LX. Press Enter. The display is no longer flashing, so it is time to start knitting. Knit 4 rows. On the front lock, set the stitch size to 5 1/2. Press Enter. End of cast on. Press Enter. Knit 10 rows. Press ABC key. The computer asks if stitch pattern A is the pattern to be knit. Press Enter. Yes. Set the front lock to SX. Press Enter. Set the back lock to GX. Press Enter. Move the lock across empty. Make sure the racking handle is down. Press Enter. Are the 50 needles on the front bed in working position? Press Enter. Move the lock across empty. Notice that the lock moved the pushers in preparation for knitting this pattern. Use both colors, starting with color 1 and changing color every 2 rows. Press Enter. The stitch size on the front lock remains on 5 1/2. Press Enter. Insert the black strippers. Press Enter. Set the front lock to LX. Press Enter. Knit 56 rows. Remember to change color every 2 rows. After 10 rows, release the yarn from the clip underneath. Press ABC. The computer asks if stitch pattern B is the pattern to be knit next. Press Enter. Set the front lock on SX. Press Enter. Set the back lock on GX. Press Enter. Move the lock across empty. Make sure the racking handle is down. Press Enter. Check needles. Press Enter. Move the lock across. Notice that the pushers have been moved in preparation for the next pattern. Put color number 1 in the lock. Change color every 2 rows. Press Enter. Stitch size on front lock remains at 5 1/2. Press Enter. Insert black strippers. Press Enter. The front lock should be set to LX. Press Enter. Knit 64 rows. Remember to change color every 2 rows. Press ABC. Work with the computer as with stitch patterns A and B. When the display stops flashing, turn the videotape on again. Start knitting. After the first row is knit, the computer says that color 2 is to be put in the lock on the next row back to the right. Pick up color 2 with the lock. Continue to knit until the computer says to change the color again. Knit 42 rows following the computer's directions until the row counter reads 180. If the display does not say row count 180, press Enter. Then press ABC to bring up the next pattern. Is stitch pattern D the pattern to use now? Press Enter. Work with the computer to set up stitch pattern D. When the computer window instruction reads KX and is no longer flashing, return to the video. Knit 48 rows and watch the computer to see when the color needs to be changed. When the row counter reads 230, set the front lock to N. Take the feeding eyelet out of the lock. Move the empty lock across the bed 2 times. With the left hand, hold on to the knitting underneath. Break off the yarn and secure the ends from the cones into the yarn clip. With this practice piece, 4 different patterns were done and 2 knitting techniques used. Isn't it easy to find where each is on the knitting?